yeah, I don't really necessarily miss anything, because the beauty of going through all these new experiences at the time is just that. You can't really reinvent that stuff. So you can't sort of sit there and go, God, I miss this or I miss that, because that's just what was happening then at that moment.
So tell us about your life now versus then. Back then, it was like the entire world was a mosh pit, and you were just, trying to survive, and you'd get all dirty and muddy or whatever, and scrape yourself off, and you pick it up. I mean, you've got lots of money now. You've got to take into account the business of the music industry as well, sort of where I'm going to go with things next. How has life changed for you? How's the evolution been from where you were to where you are now?
Right. Well, on the surface, you start to talk about all these funny stories and this and that, but all throughout all that, I was very focused musically. And so that was like an underlying thread that kept my sanity and sort of kept me here, was that I was very focused about the music and about the concerts, and everything else was just peripheral extracurricular activity, right? So now, we have a manager, and we sort of like to rely on the manager and the tour manager to be able to trust them. After years of doing that, you start to learn that that doesn't necessarily work in your best interest. And the reality of this business and the sort of cutthroat aspect of it, and the fact that your best friends will rip you off and all that kind of stuff starts to come into play. So as you do this longer and longer, the more aware of all that you become. If you're smart, you'll start to learn something about it so that you can protect yourself in the future. So at this point, it's still about the music, and it's about protecting and keeping that sacred and being able to function and have control over it and not letting somebody else do it. And also, I'm not much of a money-minded person. That's always been sort of my character defect. I never did this for the money, so I never really cared much about it. But at this point, I'm sort of like going, we need to sort of pay attention to what's going on, because the potential to have disastrous things happen and not to be compensated for your efforts is always right there.
You bring up a good point, and maybe this is a good way to talk about how you definitely don't discriminate. I mean, you're not this rocker that heard Van Halen as a kid and went, oh my God, to Steven Adler, what is this stuff? This is great, and then you love Cheap Trick and Kiss and all these other bands. You've really worked with a number of interesting artists. I love the story about you and Ray Charles cutting a song together. Tell me what it is, tell us all about what you admire so much about Ray Charles, why you identified with him, and why that meant a lot to you to cut something with him.
Well, I mean, Ray Charles is one of America's classic artists, and he really sort of paved the way for black music on radio, and just such an iconic individual, and been around for so long, and also had some of the same demons that I had, and survived it. And
did you talk about doing heroin?
Never talked about that.
Really?
I never wanted to even go there. But you crossed my mind.
But you say in the book, though, that the two of you shared sort of this unspoken bond that only junkies share.
Yeah, well, yeah. I guess I never really stopped to think of it that way, but for some reason, I got this phone call to come play on Ray's record. I don't think at the time Ray was really aware of who I was. I think it was the producer, and so I went down there and met Ray and heard the song and played on it, and he really liked it. He came in after I did it and really liked it, and so offered for me to do some other stuff, and then I ended up getting involved with his band, re-recording a bunch of his classics for Ray, the movie. And so just hanging out with him and just seeing how amazingly talented, to see somebody who's so great at what they do, and somebody who's actually sort of invented a lot of the styles that he does, and made it sort of a popular kind of a thing. It's really a trip to be around, and so it was nice to be sort of let in there and sort of respected as a mutual musician to be able to work with those guys.
Did he say anything to you that you'll never forget? Did he ever turn to you at a moment and say something that kind of stuck with you? A legend like Ray Charles?
Yeah, right. I should have something to quote him on, but I can't.
What about